Yes, greetings. JD for Shieldrum Records. Tonight, another episode of exploring Ableton audio effects. So, this is episode 4. Let me make a bit of auto promotion before I start. So, you can find some content I develop into my tutorial on my own Patreon. So the name of this Patreon is simply Patreon Shieldrum Record, as the name of the studio. Greetings, Dileta in the chat room. And so this Patreon is a bit special. There's no dedicated content, video content on this channel. All the video content and the knowledge is public and free on YouTube. And on this Patreon, you can come and get some of my instruments or effects or Ableton project. And by the way, supporting the work I do for everyone that way. So if you are a musician and Ableton is your main tool, definitely have a look. You should find whatever you want. As example, I have sampled the entire Oberheim DMX from the studio and make some drum rack with it. There's some stems also, and really I encourage you to scroll down and go back in time because there's a lot of archives. Okay, another place you can see my content is on YouTube channel called JDI Elements. This is my artist name. This is under that name that I compose and publish and produce my own music, sometimes featuring some people. So this is on YouTube channel JD Shieldrum Records, JDI Elements, sorry. And then you can go also check my music on my shop, Bandcamp JDI Elements. And another network where I'm playing from time to time some live is TikTok channel. So same way, JDI Elements. And this is the place you can have some little clips of what is occurring as release and everything like that for JDI Elements. And some live when I have some time to switch on the cam and do some live dub mix. To finish, it's been a long time that on YouTube I didn't mix my own music live. This is what I do on the JDI Element YouTube channel. So yes, stay tuned because it will come back as regularly as my tutorial. Okay, so tutorial are here on this channel, YouTube channel, Shieldrum Records, and for all the music and the dub and get into the music and the vibe, this is the other channel, JDI Elements. Okay, of course, Instagram, Facebook, and all those things, but these are not the more important. So to start, what you are seeing here on the screen is the latest reward on Patreon. Last week, we work on several effects, and what I do in those live discovering video is to take all Ableton effects in the alphabetic order, and then I open them. If I know them well, I will explain you the thing in depth, and if I just know a little about them, it's a way to inspire you to go check those tools if you think you may need them. Okay, so to describe what I gave as a reward from last tutorial, this is Ableton project. I set everything in Ableton project because there's a routing concerning the sidechain gate effects. Okay, so we will have just a pad loop. Okay, and this pad loop, there's a gate sidechain effects we made on the last video, and there's all the routing explained, meaning you just have to go and check how things are set up. Of course, as it is written all above, this is just an empty MIDI track with some information. It is said saved effects and effect racks contained in the track into your user folder for later use. Okay, so first we have this particular routing of sidechain gate experiment. Then we have a second track. This was the track containing the drum, and I built something I call crunch effect, and this is the combination of two erosion effects set differently, and we can have access on shortcuts and macros in the front panel here. Okay, no preset for that one, but yeah, it will give you the idea. And to finish, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 effect send. So the last one is the room verb I use in the studio here. This is a reverb, hybrid verb, where I use only the algorithm part with some sidechain compression in the pass. The only thing is if you want to use the sidechain, when you will open it in a new project, you will have to set the source of the sidechain as the same channel. So here, effects return E, room reverb, and pre-effects. Okay, the only thing you will have to do if you want to use this sidechain capability. And yeah, so just the minor shortcut you will need, and a decays that don't go above 5 seconds. It's already too much for a room, which will stand between 0.5 to 2 seconds max for a big room. Okay, so this is the first effect. The second effect is another study we made into the precedent tutorial, and it was working in the hybrid verb and working on the left side of it, aka the convolution reverb. So in this project, you will find directly in the user section already selected 3 impulse responses we made last time. And if you read well, at the top of this reverb, it's written over your pointer here for infos. So on every effect, you can hover your pointer here on the title. But I wrote it to guide you to see that in the info box on the left. It is called Rabbit or IR Verb Pack Beta. And it is called Rabbit Hole because there's a colleague, musician and singer who was there in the last tutorial and suggest this name. So very great. So I described starting this new reverb rack based on design impulse response. So here, for now, 3 impulse responses available in the user folder in the convolution impulse response section of hybrid verb. Okay. Impulse responses are also available in a separated folder in the Ableton project folder. Okay. So in case you want just to get the impulse response and drop it in one of your projects, you can do this also simply by going into current project, and you will see beside the sample and the backup folder, you will have impulse response, and you will have 3 of them called Send, Wise, See You Again, and Seashore. So yes, now I will close that and go back on the redeem I used to do those tutorials. And today we are at the one called Looper. Okay, so let me go. Yes, we are at Looper. So first, to make a little pause and just be into the vibe, I selected an instrument, a bit hardcore, but this little track I made for a while have no lead, and as it is in A minor, I just want to improvise something. I could grasp some loop inside to have a lead melody. So in case you want to know, so this lead melody is a plugin and a chord effect, which is in the MIDI effect from Ableton, and a drum bus after it, just to bring some drive and crunch quickly. I figured out that even the drum bus is a perfect tool to make sounds thicker. Okay, so in the case for you to know, the synth I'm using here is an emulation of the Juno 6 from Roland, and it's Arturia who made it. And I was scrolling the other day through the presets and stay on this yesterday land. Okay, and I move a few things on it, but not a lot. Okay. So just to say, you can do this technique with any synth. So the idea of using a chord MIDI effect from Ableton here is to play a melody, a monophonic melody, but having this chord with only the first shift set to -12 semitone, which will add an octave below to the sound of my solo. So without, it sounds like this, and with, okay, so to have more thickness. And the last thing I would say, no matter which plugin you use or synth, take care of having a minimum of polyphony. The minimum would be 2. But I prepared the synth to accept some chord in case I want to make some chords. But yes, double check your monophonic synth, virtual monophonic synth, and add some note of polyphony if that's not the case. Because if polyphony is on 1 instead of 2, 3, 4, etc., even if you set a chord track, a chord effect before your synth, it will not sound that second note. Okay. So I know we are still in the audio effect section, but to end on this, you can have several notes, up to 6 different notes, and the little percentage below the note is at which velocity that doubling at another note or octave will sound compared to the lead note. Okay. Here, in my case, it's possible that this synth is not set to respond to velocity. Perhaps this preset is like that, so it makes no difference. But with a synth with velocity set on the amp section, on the volume, you will have several levels. Also, this machine can be set to the scale of the setted scale of your project, and for this you just have to press on this little knob, okay, little switch, sorry. You can also strum those notes. So if I strum it, the second note or the other note will come later, like if you are playing a chord on a guitar. So I will not go into the demonstration here now, because I will go in it in a next video more in depth and precisely. So this strum can be set in milliseconds, negative or positive, and you can add some tension, meaning perhaps if you play a 6 chord note, you want the note to go quickly to the last one, so the tension will be high, or you want the note to go slowly to the last one, so the tension will be low. Crescendo is for increasing velocity of all those notes. Okay, but here for tonight, just simple. This is the most simple way you can use it. Making some double, going to the octave. I can add upper octave also to make it even more fat. Okay, this was the in between. Let's play this first to see if I hear something inside. Yes, I'm looking at the chat room. EK Multimedia. Orgamon, yes. I don't know it, but EK Multimedia is well renowned. And B3 is one of the classic organ. I don't know the original place where they use this organ, but it became the reference in reggae and a lot of other genre of music. But yes, we have to go to the less expensive because everyone is doing quite the same thing. What I would recommend, or I did to get some of my plugin, I just wait the thing like summer sale or Black Friday in winter or whatever. Just looking at this, I take the newsletter from Archeria, for example, and when they have a super promotion or discount, I know exactly when. And I would also recommend, even if I don't work for them, but another network where I get some of my instruments is Plugin Boutique. And on this same way, you take the newsletter and you will see when any orgamon, for example, of any brand would be into discount. Also know that Plugin Boutique is also doing some rent to own. So very great. This is a very great thing because sometimes we are fed up to run after some, crack thing, etc. So yes, just go on Plugin Boutique, rent to own. For example, just to give you the way it works, I wanted to have a visualizer. Okay, but I find it very expensive for what it is. So let me find it. It's a very great tool, by the way, very great tool. But at the time I wanted it, I couldn't spend like, I think it's 49. Okay, so this is something to visualize my signal. Okay, and I get it like I'm paying $4 per month. And even if I want to pay it entirely, they just want to take the $4 per month. So yes, the only thing you will have to install is just this little program called Beatport Access. Switch it on before your session and all your rent to own plugin will be recognized. Okay, I think that auto promotion and even promotion for people who don't pay me is enough now. Just some tips. And yes, greetings to my sister. Greetings and dubwise Aital Juga. And let's go for this little solo before I continue to talk. Thank you for being there. Let's go. Okay, at least this beautiful window will be useful as I have no cam, so you can follow on the keyboard what is occurring. Let's go again. Dubwise. I still got no title for this future track, so in case you got an inspiration, depending on what emotion you got when you listen to it, this will be welcome. Let's go again. Okay, let's go for some improvisation on that. So the little tips I could give here It's when you don't want to mess up with learning while you are composing, just compose in A minor. You will have only the white key and your own limitation to bring something new. Dubwise, let's press record. Perhaps a bit too loud. Let's go. Okay, there will be enough idea here to get the right one. Okay, we'll see that for later. Let's cut down the echo and let's go on this looper. Okay, Ableton Audio Effect, looper. So looper, as its name say, is a looper. Let's close that synth. So looper is a plugin you will open on an audio track, and first it's something that can help you to loop some external signal. Okay, so your guitar, your voice, whatever you want. You can also drop it on an existing track after a synthesizer or after a already recorded track and capture what's inside. Okay, so this is what I will do to get the example. So what can I do? Let's go simple and see if simple work. I will launch this track and we'll launch the recording button of the looper. What we can see before we start is just that the quantization of the launch of this switch. Okay, so for now it is set to global. Global correspond to the value set here. Okay, so if it is set to global, it means that when I will press rec, it will start to record the next bar when I play. Okay, so generally you will launch this at the end of a bar. And this is for you to understand even better this quantization launch. This is the same concept used by Ableton in this view. Okay, so imagine you have a clip with some note. I will not draw some note, but imagine here you have a clip, even several clips in a track. Okay, so by default, each track will be launched when we press on it on the next bar. Okay, so if the track is playing, okay, so generally it will launch on the next bar, and where you will set this, let's say, launch quantization is in this display. Okay, extended clip properties, and here you will have the possibility to set how this clip will be triggered. So by default is already set to global. As I said, global correspond to the value here. Okay, so you can want it to play or be triggered the next bar, the next second bar, the next 4 bar, or some quantization even smaller. Okay, and you can also set it to none. So this is the same concept they put into the looper. So for the example, I will call it 1 for that, for you to get the thing. So there's no sound, but you will see the clip being triggered on the next bar or on the next 2 bar. And let's make another example on the next 4 bar. Okay, so I click on the second clip and I will go into the quantization. Instead of global, I will set it to 2 bar. On the 4, I will set this quantize launch to 4 bar. And on the first one, I will set it to 1 bar equal to global. Okay. So by the way, I take time to explain this session view also, because even if the looper, let me show the picture, is very great and we can do a lot of things in it. In Ableton, this side also work as a kind of looper, meaning you will punch in a recording on a round square and punch it out via a pedal or whatever, or with the mouse or a controller. Okay, and it will play in loop whatever you recorded. So if you don't need to have some special effect or some use we will discover with this, you just have to do your looping work in the session mode, okay? And every option is available. As soon as you have a clip, you can pitch it, you can play it twice fast or brief, a lot of things. So I will play this and just we'll set it to stop. And we will start by the 4-bar. We'll launch the music, no talk, and play this clip. Okay, you see, as long as it was blinking, it was waiting the 4-bar to be ended to start and stop blinking and being in a permanent green. Let's try on the second. You will see it come earlier. Okay, and of course the one will come earlier also. So this is the explanation of why there's a quantization launch. Okay, so now let's start, play that melody, and we will launch. It will start on the next bar. So I will try to trigger it just after the drum roll. This will be bar 1. Okay, and the way you will stop the recording will also be on that quantization format. Okay, so now if you start at the right time and stop at the right time, you have a perfect loop and it will display like this. Okay, so now from here, I can play all what is occurring in the MIDI track should not be heard. Let's try. I solo this track and play this. And in fact, we hear it still because this is a looper and not. Perhaps we have a mode to set it to not hear what is occurring on the track. So I will simply mute that track and now we will play with it. I press to end my loop capture, I press stop instead of plus. Okay, normally if you continue your work and you want to overlay some other loop on that same loop, you will press that plus button. Okay, and that way it will play as we see with that plus button. And when I want to add another instrument, I will launch again and press this for it to be launched at the next bar and capture, for example, a guitar or the voice or whatever. So if you do it live, it's great to have one mic and that mic set to capture or a guitar or a voice. Or the second option would be to have 2 tracks, each one with a looper, and now you would make some looping work in multi-track. Okay, so for tonight I will just show some sound manipulation we can do with this box. Really, this is a tool very, very used by any users who love looping work, and you will surely find some more technical videos explanation for that, okay, if you love looping. So if I remember things we can do, you see here, for example, in this little window, it is written drag me, meaning if I have a blank audio track, I can take what I recorded and bring it on a next track to do some other work on it, okay? So this is one of the first options I love in this. I don't use a lot of the looper, but if I had to use it to capture something how I can tell it. If I want to capture exactly 2 bars of something, I would do this and drag and drop my recording. Okay. So I can erase this. You have this option in head. We can play that same loop recorded twice its time or twice slow. So let's try. We can apparently even play 2 octaves below. Okay, I think this has a my tone. Let's try -12. So this can be interesting also with a well-known effect called half-time effect. So if you don't have the half-time effect, you just take this, record your part, for example, your melody, and you divide the time by 2, so -1 octave, or even -2 octave, but let's say on -1 octave. Now this sample is playing also twice slower than the whole track. And if I superpose the two, it will not give something musically right because I didn't premeditate it, but you will hear the original sound and the sound twice slow, the same sound twice slow. And for that, we have to start. Okay, so it. Okay, so let's continue. We can play it speed. We can reverse it. Okay, and the reason why we are hearing the source also, we're still hearing the source, is because of that last option, input to output, and it is set to always by default. So if I don't want it always, to be free to play with my new loop, I could write never, or only when I rec and overdub, or when I rec overdub and stop. Okay, so we could set never. Switch on this one back, and normally we hear only our loop. Let's make it playing very, very slow. And we will see when we switch off the looper if we hear back the original track. Okay, so we have one sound or the other. Okay, let's go on the next. It was a bit long because of this introduction to the launch quantization. And this launch quantization also available in this live section session view. It's because when you have many events to deal with, it can be hard to trigger everything exactly at the right time. So the more your part will be important in the development of your live set, and the more this quantization must be set to 1 bar or 4 bar, depending of the length of the musical phrases of your actual live. Okay, and the only way I will use some smaller value, it's to launch some sample, or for example, if I want to launch a snare sample into reverb, I would choose 1/8 or 1/16, because I don't want to be able to launch this snare effect only on the start of a bar. Okay, so after looper, we have the multiband dynamic. So perhaps if we try it on the master bus, we will have more possibility to hear things. So this is simply the multiband compressor from Ableton. And it is well known because, let's go straight to it, there's one of its presets which is called OTT. Okay, and OTT stands for over the top compression, and this is when the multiband compressor is used as a trashing effect instead of a carefully tuned multiband. So we will try this little presets generally used in a dry wet configuration, meaning in parallel. And let's just go and try to trick things and explain what is occurring here. So I set this multiband dynamic on the master bus. As most of the plugin in Ableton, you can also sidechain this. Okay, but we will not go into that tonight, but just for you to know. Then we have 3 band, and we can decide of the crossover frequency between the high band and the mid band, and the crossover frequency before the low band and the mid band. Okay? In a horizontal way, we have all what we can control below a certain threshold, okay, and all what we can control above a certain threshold. Okay, for sure it's on 3 bands. So let's listen those 3 bands. I will drop down the level of everything just that way I can talk while I'm tweaking that machine. Okay, so we can set the crossover frequency for the high band. Let's set it to the default, or the mid band, or the low band. Okay, and on each of those bands we can or compress the maximum, and if we want to go quick, we will go directly in the graphic and break it down. And for example, now you see nothing occurring because the set parameters for above is 1:1. And when you have a 1:1 ratio into a compressor, nothing is occurring. It's meaning that if 1 is at the input, it's only 1 at the output. So let's change this ratio. So the paradox here is the more I compress, and as you can hear, the more it is loud. It is because surely there's a auto gain compensation. Okay, so whatever I will do, it will try to keep the same gain as the gain from the input, but with the compression. Okay, so this is like at the same time I would compress this band, and at the same time this machine is bringing everything up to the original level. And for what I'm seeing here, in fact, this part on the above is an expander. Okay, the sound is becoming louder because, okay, wow, so it even go deeper. So let me just clarify. Okay, we have a ratio here, and let me open quickly a compressor for you to understand where am I. Okay, on a classic compressor from Ableton we already seen, we have several modes here: RMS, peak, and expand. Okay, when we go into expand, the way we set the ratio is working as an expander, meaning every sound going above this threshold will be expand. Okay, so add some level. Let me set an example to recall the fact. Okay, you see this little yellow curve here saying to you that each time the signal is crossing that threshold, it's bringing the signal up. Okay? If we want a compression, we would select RMS or peak. Okay, and now you see the peak are downside, and you see also that in the level, the more I compress and the less you hear. Okay? So now, as I don't use often multiband dynamic, I was a bit confused with this ratio and how it works. When from 1-on-1 you go downward with your mouse, you will enter the compression, okay, until 1 infinite. For the example here, if I set it back to compression and I move it, I go from 1-to-1 to infinite on 1, okay? But on this compressor, we have to go downward with the parameter to go in the compressor area. And if we want to go into the expand area, we draw the mouse to the top, up, okay? So it can be confused for starters because in this other compressor, we are in compressor mode and we have to go up in the value to compress more, okay? But here, when we go up, it goes into expand mode. So that's good and not good, but yes, now we know. So let's go back to the example now and do some real compression. I'm still on the high frequencies. And I go downward. And you see the color is no blue but red. So when you have a red color, it's really do some compression without gain compensation. This was a confusion for me. Sorry for that at the beginning. But yeah, there's no compensation. If you want it to be compensated, for example, here, I'm attenuated for minus 30 dB. I would have to compensate here. Okay, to have that same compression at a reasonable level. Okay, so as you can see also, we can set the parameter from here. Okay, and the to move with your mouse is from left to right. This will be the threshold. Okay, here also you can know this is the threshold if you look at it in the other compressor, it is written, but here it is not written. So from left to right, this will be this parameter, and down to up will be this parameter. Okay, so in one move you can set the two parameters here, and the two parameters of the way it compress or expand. We have the two parameters of attack and release here, but these are not controlled by the graphic. So let's just try the graphic, and what we can do also is to see the way we can do to bypass. I would like this big, okay, because you can have it in two bands also by switching off or high or low, and you can have it in one band if you switch off the two filters. So for that, continuing that example, I will set everything to default and set it like a one band compressor. Okay, as if it was this compressor. Okay, threshold, and I will go downward to add some compression. Okay, so you have to take the border to set the threshold, and when you are on the right spot, you will draw down or draw up that signal. Okay. So it seemed complex. Let's say that it was complex to explain, but in a certain way, it's more intuitive, meaning that even if you don't know everything in compressor, I'm not saying you don't know what you are doing, but I would say that you just want to reach another density in a certain band or whatever. I find it more intuitive like that. So now let's set all this compressor and see if we can uplift a bit this partial master. Okay, so what I do, as I don't know, I'm working with it as if I don't know compression. But here I compress and I find the sound sweet, but low now. So what I will look at is this value indicating me like -10 attenuation of -10 dB. And I will bring that band to +10 or +9. Okay. For example, let's say all that frequency band where there is the snare, I don't want to compress it, but bring out that snare. So let's try it. What's very good here is with this rectangle, you are seeing how much of the original level you are biting to expand or to compress. And what I want to expand is not the whole body of the mid frequency, but the very top. And generally, my snare is more loud in the mix than the piano and all those things. So I will just try to set that threshold really at the peak of that frequency. You see there's a bump when the snare hits. Okay, so now it's like only the snare in this area of level. And from now I will expand. So I take my mouse and go up in the up value. And as I hear that I have not enough high frequency in that compressed peak, I will switch off that one. And I will move that cutoff frequency around 5K or even more. Okay, and let's say for the hi-hat, I will do a bit of the same thing, just expanding the peaks of that hi-hat. Also, I can see here the level in the high frequency and mid frequency, how much of a dB it adds when it expands the sound, and I will compensate by some negative value at the output. So let's see for the mid. We are now around +6, but I will reduce a bit lower of that. Okay, and for the high, just a +1, and I can keep it like this. Okay, of course, I didn't talk about attack and release, but the general rule, you have to observe the value set by default by Ableton, and you will learn what is occurring. The more your frequency are in the low domain, and the longer release you will need. Okay, and also a longer attack before the compression, because if you go to compress very shortly, like 1 ms or -10 0.10 ms, it will clip directly because the frequency length is very slow in the bottom and there's a lot of energy. Okay, so the more you will go in high frequency and the more your attack and release can be set more serré en français, mais j'ai pas le mot qui vient. More small value. This will do the trick. Okay, and of course we can compress the peak value, like for drums and things like that, or the RMS value when you want to really bring out the body of your sound. Okay, before hearing that OTT preset, of course, I give you the introduction to it, and you will go deeper if you want, because it's already a lot what I explained, but I don't know if you can see, but we have the exact same set of control for the below. Okay, here we was working compression or expansion on the level above a set threshold. Okay, so to be clear with that draw, here is like dropping the threshold here, like that. Okay, this is the same move. And everything that going above will trigger the behavior of that compressor. But in this one, we have also the way to work with everything which is below a certain level. And we can say that this is the expander mode. This is also the gate work like this. So let me open the gate also so you get the full explanation. Really, even if this is not a full gate, this is a gate. Gate is also called expander. Okay. And so this is in the same machine in 3 different bands. You have like a gate section work as an expander. And when we say expander, it is that we will not cut all the sound. We will just make in front a part of the sound. Let me just show you, because you will understand what this first section is for. Okay, we will work on that gate as if it is an expander. Okay, when you hear it like this is a gate. It's cutting really everything. But an expander will set in focus the louder part, okay, and gives you the control on the weaker part. Okay, if I set this compressor like this gate or expander like this, there's no signal when it's not crossing that threshold. Okay, and now I can use that gate because, for example, I have a mix. When I bypass it, it's a stereo mix, and I found it too cluttered. Okay, so I will first gate the impact of that track. Okay, and with the parameter called floor, I will choose at which level all those signal will be. So with this setting, I'm saying to the signal, okay, everything that crosses that threshold, you keep it same, but everything under that threshold, you limit it -6 dB below its original level. So bypass and on. Okay. And when we put the concept of expansion to the max, this is when it can become a gate, because instead of having all level below the threshold to a certain level, -6, we would have all the signal below that level to -infinite. Okay, so the gate effect is an expander. It was called expander before we call it gate, and most of the hardware machine are sold as an expander gate. Okay, so you can picture in your mind that the gate is the exact opposite behavior than a compressor. So this is why this is exactly the same effect, but focusing on all the signal above a certain threshold for compressor, or the signal below a certain threshold for expander. Okay. So after this explanation, this is when I will reset everything to default, and we will try to work on the below section, which is a kind of expander, meaning that I will have the choice below a certain level. So I can't recall. Okay, let's go on wideband for the example. We will see and decide what is occurring from the signal below a certain threshold. So if I drop down my mouse, meaning I go downside like this, you see, as I was explaining you with the gate, when we go really above everything, it reacts as a gate. Okay, more precise than a gate, of course, but a gate still. Okay, so now I'm saying to this machine what to do, and what it has to do is below that threshold, let's set in peak to be even more precise. Okay, so below this, you reduce the level the max as you can. Okay, now let's say below this, bring it up. Okay, and you can hear this characteristic pumping effect, and as you can hear, when I stop the sound became louder quickly, because this setting is expanding, and it is working all the signal below the threshold. Okay, and all the signal below the threshold are all the low level. So this kind of compression will really bring up all the low level of your track. Let's open an effect to see even more exaggerated expander. Okay, so let's go back to it. So meaning on that signal, you can, and with that compressor, you can set it to one band, and at the same time bring some of the low signal up and reduce some of the higher signal down. So this is a double compression. This is when we will enter in the OTT section. But yeah, so to remember, I guess if I'm not mismatch the term, with all this compressor, this is some downward compression or expansion, meaning we go down into the signal, we bite into the signal. Okay, so for downward compression and expansion, working on everything that goes above the threshold. This is what it means. This is on that side. And for the upward compression, we call it upward because we are selecting a level below a certain threshold, and we will decide to compress or expand this signal. So left side, upward compression and expansion, and on the right side, downward compression and expansion. Okay, and let's go back to that. We can do this on several tracks. So to give you some idea of user cases, imagine you have a mix already done or a track, and in your track there's too much effect and you don't know how to remove it, and you don't rely on AI to do that. So you will use this kind of compressor and drop down the lowest level. Generally, the effects will be in the lowest level. So you can do that. You can also reduce the background noise of some recording. Sometimes it's not good to remove everything because it's like with no life no more. And the good solution would be with a downward compression to reduce even more this background noise while we keep it. Okay, just at a lower level. So now quickly, as always, if you want to go deeper in that, there's an info box and a lot of tutorial. But yes, we have also a lot of different presets. By the way, an alternative use that may interest you in this effect. So let's go back to effect. And that multiband, I use it to build my own crossover. Okay, here we have sub, mid, low band, and high band. So how I would use that? I would create. Let's drop the high band. Okay, and I will group it in a rack. Okay, and I will drop all other. And what I did in those. There's no compressor. You don't want to draw the three at the same time. So high, low, mid, and sub. Okay, so I use the same a copy of the same instance, and in the first one I solo the first band until 5K with no compression at all. One-on-one, okay. I could use it as a multi-band compressor with 4 bands. But yeah, so the first one is that one. The second one is the mid from 5 to 360. The low band is from 360 to 90. And the last one is from 90 to the lowest frequency possible. So we can hear quickly in solo each band. Okay, so for sound system lover or people who want to process different bands differently or have the control simply for level control on a whole mix without compression, this would be a great tool. So let's call it SHR Xover. Okay, and I think I will drop this in the Patreon pack of this week. So many use for it. Some would say that it don't cut very precisely, but for me it's quite good already. I can't tell you how much it cuts because it's nowhere indicated. I would say 24 dB per octave. But yeah, my goal is not to have the perfect cut. What we have to understand is when we take a signal and we split it in band, whether it's inside a single plugin in 3-band or whether it's a copy of that plugin on several bands, okay, at the cutoff frequency between one band and another band, the more the filter slope will be high, and the more we will have some resonancy and a peak of frequency at the junction, okay? This is why when you will work in multiband, whether you want to put it on an echo, a reverb, or whatever you can use Xover for, you will prefer to use some soft slope, meaning it don't cut a lot, but we will have less resonancy at each cut frequency. To add an in-between for that, a long time ago I was talking about some EQ, I can't remember that EQ's name, EQ3 perhaps, it is called like this. Let's go to E. Yes, EQ3, what I'm explaining to you now. Its little mistake before the update was that it is very useful to cut in several bands and do as I did here, copy several instances of the EQ3 and have our signal in multiband. But it was resonating too much at the crossover frequency between low and mid and high. So they set an update and add the flat response mode, okay? And when it is engaged, this EQ will flatten the response at the crossover frequency, okay? So I use this multiband because as it's one of the most powerful tools in Ableton, I'm sure that at the crossover frequency, everything is flat also, okay? This is not like a filter effect, but more a way to cut gently in several bands and process each band. So the example I give you here is I go up to 4 band because I want my sub to be isolated, okay? But you can even go to 10 band, and it's like if you have 10 band here, you will have a 10 band EQ just by working with the level of each band. Okay, so here it's like I have a 4-band EQ with the possibility to insert effects different on each channel. So yes, I'm interested in it. So let's give it a more pleasant name, Xover, Xover what? Comp expand, comp and exp. So those crossover have been prepared for something called the SHR preamp. And the SHR preamp is a virtual dub preamp I made for people who don't build music but want to play with the release. And so I replicate the behavior of a real preamp with the capability of assigning some MIDI control to all this. And in this project, available on Gumroad, there's this kind of concept for the cut of the preamp. There's some echo, reverb, some parametric EQ, a 10-band EQ, brief. Every element we would find on a preamp, but in Ableton. That way everyone who gets it can also modify it to its own taste. Okay, to finish on that little let's cut it, this little Xover technique, and I will leave this Xover thing into a Patreon reward. So let's try it only on the drum. Okay, and let's say I want to add something on just my I band. So I select the I band. I will take some overdrive, for example. Okay. Let's take the second band and let's say I want to add some phasing. So let's find the phaser flanger or flange. Okay, for example. And for that one, let's say I want to hit some saturation on my kick. To have more bite. Let's go even deeper with some EQ of that signal. Okay, what I have left now, the sub. And for the sub, let's say I want just, for the example, add some compression. And bring it up 3 dB. Okay. So this is multi-band processing. Okay, so many concepts can be set with this technique. For example, you can also have this little rack after an echo in your setup, on your return channel echo, and you will set 4 different levels, or you will set an effect on each band, and a single echo will have several colors depending on each of its bands. So I just want to reset it to its original state. Okay, in-depth excursion. And we can, to complete this little rack just with 4 knobs, set the level simply of each band. And that's right. Let's set some color also. That way it will be clear. Let's set a green, okay, to understand. That's it. Let's pack it up like that. And I will paste it on the next track. Okay. So after we were on the multiband at the letter M, oh, I didn't talk about that OTT so quickly. OTT, well known for people who are in the EDM style and other crazy style, loud style. So this is how I set the preset for the OTT. I will drop down the level. Just listen what happened to your whole music when you drop that same compressor set in that way. As you can hear, it's maximum crushing, so generally we would not set it on the master, even if we could in parallel. But let's say you would use this kind of heavy presets of that multiband compressor if you want to bring out everything from the source. Okay, here you see I put it after the synth, the lead synth, and even the noise generated. Let me show you. Okay, this synth, virtual synth, is generating a noise to emulate the noise of the original machine. So even that noise is already bring up like plus 30 dB above the original level. So on just that melody here, you can hear what it brings. So it's crazy how it brings low level in front. This is why they call it over the top compressor. And when I launch the melody, I will drop the level. And my level is well down. So yes, some over compression. Let's try it quickly on the drum. Okay, so of course, I didn't talk about this, but we have the input level we can change. Here they change it to enter hot in this device. And at the end, you have the general output. You have also time. So if you move that time switch, no matter how you set your compressor, all the time parameter, meaning attack and release, will be or increase to 1000% or decrease to 10% of the original value. You see, for example, taking just one value, we have this parameter at 22 attack. If I reduce this to 50%, we will be at 11. Okay, and it will do this for all the value of the machine, all temporal value. Okay, and for the amount, I just read on the left, adjust the intensity of compression or expansion I apply to all bands. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this time knob will control all time parameter attack and release of the upward and downward compression. Okay, this amount knob will control all the ratio. Okay, whether it's some compressor or expander ratio, this will move this in percentage. This is why it's at 100% by default, and you can reduce all those values, meaning even from a hardcore preset like this one, you can make it sweeter. And you don't see the value changing, but you will go with your ear. So it's not exactly a dry wet. I would not take it as a dry wet, but really a general amount, making it behave as a single compressor. If you want to have the great OTT sound and your original sound, you will group it like it and set a dry signal. Okay. And from there, you will add some of the maximum OTT signal in parallel. Okay, so something to look when you want to bring some electronic part upward in your mix, or totally crush something and you don't want to use some saturation or distortion. You will use that OTT technique. So after the multiband, we will talk about the overdrive. One of the plugin I use a lot. Let's go soft on the organ. So pretty simple. We have which frequency will be driven. Okay, which frequency band we want to drive, how much we want to drive it, which tone will take this drive. We can change the dynamic of that overdriven signal. Generally, to overdrive a signal will cut all its transient. So this parameter dynamic is to preserve the original dynamic of the signal, even if the signal is totally transient cutted. Okay, let me see the time, how much time I'm here. 1 hour and a half. Wow. Okay, and we have also the dry wet. So to get the full spectrum, let's go on the master, even if it's not a good idea for an overdrive, but yeah. That way you will hear which frequency I'm focusing on. Let's drop the level. So as you can hear, even in a full source like this, you can isolate really a little band of frequency to be driven. When dynamic is at 0, there's no more dynamic correction. You hear it full blast. At 50, it will try to reinterpret the original dynamic of the signal. And if you go to 100%, surely it's the closest possible as the original. That's true. Time flies when you have fun. Okay, so what to do for overdrive? So most of the time as soon as I find something is too weak in a mix, if I don't want to change the original instrument or whatever, I will drop an overdrive and try to tweak it. Or let's try on this lead. I like to see it as bring out the sand of the sound, okay? Or coat it with some sand, making it grit. So you can set it to 100% wet if you want to really tune what you need. Okay, and tweak it back. We can also put it in front of the compressor for more signal. And you hear in context, I play it without changing that little level of -17, but when I will switch on this overdrive, you will have more presence on the lead. So here you can see that which type of presence we can get from lower level instrument in an arrangement. So overdrive will help you to give more density to low level tracks, to give a grit on some snare or kick because it's too weak. Brief, to do a lot of things. What you have to retain would be that you can overdrive a particular frequency. And if you want also, imagine you want to overdrive just the high frequency and this, like that, but you want another peak, but you will duplicate it. I bypass it for now and play with another peak of distortion or overdrive. Okay, my first peak without, with, and I send this in another and set another peak. Okay, if I want to go more in detail, I would group this and set one of them in one chain and the second one in the second chain. So drive 1 and drive 2. Okay, and let's call it parallel drive. That way it will work better because the second drive will not take in consideration the drive of the first, okay? So it's more multi-band drive that way. So I will copy this also to the reward track. Patreon save. Okay, and quickly, because I like it, we can set the drive 1 as a shortcut with the tone 1. Okay, and the drive 2 and the tone 2. Okay, we will set so the right name. Okay, like that, and we set 2 sets of color. Okay, write this. And to finish this, I think we can add the filter, that filter setting. The filter setting or the dry wet. I try to choose the minimum parameter. We need the dry wet. So what we will do is the 2 dry wet as the last control. If you have 3 band, you will set the 3 dry wet to the same control. Okay, that way dry wet, 1 knob for everyone. Okay, and I guess for the frequencies, it's far better to listen to the sound and set it here. Okay, I will set the color like that. Okay, so we set for the first drive, we set it like this, and we set it for the second drive. Yes, I think it's better like this, so I can remove this. Remove drive 1 and remove drive 2, and the 2 sets of knob below will be dynamic and dry wet for each of the filter. That one and that one. Okay, set the color. Okay, that's clear enough, like this. And we keep this rack open because to suggest the user to set his frequency band here. Okay, so this will be the second rack for the pack. Let's go on a next effect and remove. Also, I could talk quickly about one of the rack I made and I use a lot. It is the attack drive. So let's go on this Patreon track. Okay. I will leave it also into this reward pack. So this is a single overdrive, okay, with calibrated parameter and some presets, okay, and generally this little plugin will increase the drive on the high frequency of a signal, more or less wide. Okay, you see the several presets, and it can be really can bring really things out just with this preset. So I demonstrate you the power of this insignificant box. Bypass. We are on the drum. Attack 1. So yes, a little plugin with some clever presets, which can bring only the high frequency and bring up the attack of snare or hi-hats until the very crushed sound, which is interesting. And this little knob will be the dry wet signal, aka the attack amount. So for this one, I will call it differently for it to be more clear for everyone. And if, okay, let's, yes, better like that. Okay, so let's bring it also on the Patreon save. So this is one of the rack from my pack called Easy Effects Rack, which is available for some Patreon from second or third level or in sale on Gumroad. So now let's go on the next effect. Give me 2 minutes to drink something and be back. I will just leave you with the drum and bass section without no other thing. And why not a bit of delay on that drum and a splash of reverb on that bass. No reverb on the bass. And yes, we can. So let me double check my big verb. Okay, I have set a big verb with an EQ for some general work, and as you see, no sub is going into that verb, so I can crank up the reverb on my bass. I will just have the atmosphere. Okay, interlude, I'm back in some minutes. Okay, so let's go into the next effect. Let me double check that I didn't forget to erase some of the additional. No, everything great. Okay, so the next effect is called pedal, and this is another kind of overdrive, very, very interesting too. I have no guitar on that one for tonight, but yes, let's say we can use it in several kind of things. Let's try it on that improvised melody. So pretty simple. You have three type of overdrive, you have an overdrive, distortion, or fuzz. Okay, you can set the gain input, gain output. You have an EQ. With that little switch, you will choose if your mid will be more low mid, or if the mid control will be more high mid, or in the middle. Okay. When you click on sub, it will, it's like a mini crossover inside, and it will isolate the sub frequency. And that's very important to remove the sub frequency when you want to drive a signal. It will make the signal more precise, and the sub tends to hit all the drive and making the rest of the frequency band look thinner here. So generally we will switch it on. Okay, so let's try quickly on a simple synth. So it's more orientated 3 algorithm, and compared to the original overdrive, which is more neutral, and it's you deal or gel everything in it. But as you can see in the level here, this overdrive and gain is bringing up the background noise of this synth. Generally, when you will deal with some synth signal, you will see that you don't need a lot of gain. Even at 0%, it gives you something. Okay, so many use for that, and at last we have a dry wet. So I would use this dry wet when I want to set it on every other instrument than a guitar. For a guitar, if I use it, it's for its effect, or I don't put it. But to give some parallel fuzz, parallel drive, etc., they set everything in the same box. So very interesting plugin. Pedal. Okay. I follow the list. We have Performer. Performer is a part of IFTA Max for Live, so I will keep it for a specific episode for IFTA devices, because there's several of them. Let's go on the next one called Phaser Flanger. So on which let's continue on that same sound. Okay, so this is a simple phaser flanger with a lot of settings. So to describe quickly, okay, because we can also open it more wide. Okay, so it can be set to phaser, flanger, or doubler. Depending on the first setting here, we will have different tuning here. For doubler, we just have this time in milliseconds. For the speed or the delay between one and the other, okay, of the doubler. Flanger, we have the time of the flanger. And phaser, we have all this, how many notches, meaning a phaser will be many notches of frequency, so many peak of frequency. And they will move over the spectrum. Okay, so to illustrate rapidly, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so a fourth stage would be something like that. But all of these are not fixed. All those peaks, they are not fixed. They can be moved by a LFO like this. Okay, and sometimes, as you can see, red and blue here, it shows you that on the right side, on the left side, sorry, and on the right side, it moves in opposite direction, okay? But this is how works a phasing. You have some peaks, and the phase, each peak is going through what we call a all-pass filter, and the all pass filter don't cut frequency but will reverse the polarity or phase of the signal. Okay, so each of these peaks, the frequency will be cancelled because it will add a reverse phase signal at those peaks, and those peaks will move. Okay, and this is what gives the particular sound of phasing. Okay, and so here it's more developed. We can, all of those peaks, we can add even more, a lot of peaks, as if I could have 42 peaks in my precedent EQ. Okay, so let's stay at 4. The center frequency, where all the pitch will wander around, is set by center. Okay, so this is a center frequency. And then we have the spread of those peaks. Okay, they can be far from each other or very close. And here we have the blend, and apparently the blend acts as a randomizer. Let me read on the left. This blend, the modulation routing between center frequency and spread. Okay, so when it's at 0, it's just center frequency is set and fixed. Okay, we can move it, but it's set and fixed. And when we blend, it is said that the modulation, so this section, will interact with, let me read again, between center frequency and spread. So this modulation will modulate at the same time the spread parameter and the center frequency parameter. Okay, depending on the speed of that LFO. Where is the speed of that LFO? No, this is going to the envelope. LFO here, percent hertz. Okay, so that same LFO will be the one. Okay, the speed of the LFO is here. Okay. So apparently we have two LFO because it is called LFO2 mix. Okay, the first LFO is in fact the one from the phaser here, with the rate, with a time value or in hertz. Okay, the amount of this modulation and the feedback of the phaser. So I think it will be more talkful if I set it on the drum bus. Okay, let's make it sound and we will continue the explanation after that. I would say what is missing in the phaser mode would be to cut the low frequency aside. Oh, I'm talking too fast. Here we have something called safe bass. So I guess this is a low cut filter, meaning it will not cut the low from your mix, but in the phaser flanger doubler circuit, you will not have the bass. For example, here below 100, we have no bass in the phasing section. Okay, let's set this rate to a musical value. Okay, you're hearing it stereo because, as you can see here, the LFO, this LFO is linked, this is the one from that knob, is in stereo, okay, and the phase of it is 180. If we set it to 0, we have only a mono modulation. And it will sound more like a classic phaser, pedal phaser. And you can have every value in between. So by default, we are in phase mode, meaning to have a perfect stereo or something in mono or in between. And when you click on that second knob, is more for a spin parameter. And the illustrations show you how it works. To 0, we have a mono, and the more we increase the spin parameter, and the more we will see that at the beginning of the LFO, it will be like a mono and it becomes stereo, and then it will become a mono and a stereo. So this is called the spin effect. Okay, and one of the last parameter, first by default it's a triangle wave LFO. You can set several type of LFO in it. This is when this phaser becoming interesting, because in the classic phaser emulation you will have only the LFO shape of that emulation. With this one you can experiment with a lot of other way of modulating this phasing. So is there a square? There's no square, but there's rectangle, so let's try it. Okay, for example, the well-known B phase, Neutron B phase, has two different LFO shape, and those two are triangle and square. So now you know that if you want to emulate this kind of B phase, you can use one or the other. You can also duplicate this one and have two phasers going one into the other. Okay, this is a bit the concept of this well-known phaser. Okay, so yes, we have all this. Yes, the last thing is the duty cycle. So this will be a way to shape the LFO. Okay, so let's set it to a slow value. And now it's at 0, so it's linear. But if I move this duty cycle, look at the shape. Okay, so you can change that shape of that oscillation, and that way you can have some unconventional triangle, or it works with every of those signals, triangle analog, for example. Okay, and have really some personalized shape. And also we can say that we can have with the same triangle, we can have triangle or a kind of rise shape, or the opposite of a rise, a fall shape. Okay, so most of the LFO section has been explained. That second LFO, we see that it's linked for the phasing to the blend parameter. And the more you will increase the notch section, and the more your phasing will be defined. So if you want an old school phasing, you can go from 4 to 8 to have really that creamy phasing. And if you want some more modern, you will go above 12. And they go far more to above everything with this, because 42 is the only phasing I see that can have 42 notches moving in several behavior. And apparently, let me read, this set the amount of the second LFO that is mixed with the first LFO. Okay, so that second LFO, we can't choose its shape, so I guess it's a triangle shape. And everything you will set it at, example, quantized or in hertz or whatever, will be mixed with the first LFO, in fact, and modulated. So you will not see the new shape that this LFO will take, but you will hear it without and with some of it. And we can hear that when we have a lot of notches, the sound is close to a flanger, even if it's not a flanger. So let's go to some more conventional take. So this concept of having one LFO modulating another is particular to this machine, and yes, very great. What can I say else about it? Let's try the flanger side. Far less parameter out of the LFOs and the rate, amount and feedback. And this time we'll change the character of your flanger. Okay, so it indicates, because the flanger is the copy of the same signal delayed by maximum 20 milliseconds. Okay, in fact, the flanger is a delay, but limited to 20 milliseconds max. Okay, so the copy will be heard 20 milliseconds max, or minimum value would be 1.0.1. Okay. And you can re-inject this via the feedback parameter. And of course, the set default time difference between original sound and its copy can be modulated by this frequency knob, which can be synced to the tempo also. Okay, so a very great one. And the last one is a doubler. You can use to double voices or synths. So let's see, maximum they set doubling effect is 150 milliseconds and the minimum is 20. Okay, so you see that the flanger is a delay that starts at 0.1 to maximum 20 milliseconds, and the doubler come after the flanger, still a delay, but value from 20 ms above the flanging and up to 150. And we can say also that between 20 and 40 or 50 ms, we are in the chorus range. Okay. And same way with the frequency knob and that LFO, which can be modulated by the second LFO, this parameter will be modulated. Okay, so we were at phaser flanger. So before I quit this, we will go into the Patreon save track and add a few other racks for you. I keep this open and just some sample of my easy effect racks. I made a simplified, I think it's simplified, phaser effect and a simplified flanger effect. I didn't make the doubler. Okay. So this will be also in the next week reward. And in the phaser, in fact, I mapped every of the parameters, necessary parameter, even for the LFO, and I rebrand them with some name I'm used to. So for example, we can, in the front panel, we can close that. This is full. In the front panel, we can cut the low frequency from the phasing pass. We can impact the width, make it stereo or mono, the LFO rate, LFO amount, LFO shape, envelope follower. I didn't talk about it. I can quickly. So we have also an envelope following, an envelope follower. Okay, here. So if it is switch off, it don't follow the envelope of the input signal, but when it's switch on, it will follow the envelope of the input signal. And you have the attack and release to set how this envelope will affect the phasing. And we have the value, how we can say, the amount of that envelope follow signal. And this is the amount of this envelope follow signal. And we can impact in positive or negative value. Okay, below that we have the feedback, center frequency, spread stage, mode blend stage, and dry wet. And I choose all those parameters just to build the preset. That way you can go in each preset pretty quickly. And let's go on where I set it. Okay, I will copy it on the drum and we will go quickly through the presets of my rack. That way you will have an overview, audible overview of what is capable this phasing on drum. Bypass, and then I will switch the rest. So yes, this last preset is going into the envelope following mode, meaning the signal will decide when the phasing is moving. And I will add this preset, call it bubble phaser. Okay, so by using this rack, you can double check here what is occurring between each of those presets, and that way you will learn quickly how to use it, and also it will make fast to use phaser. Okay, so let's copy this in the Patreon box. With a brand new preset. And of course, I did the same for the flanger. So let's test the flanger before we leave this effect. on drums still, bypass, and then the presets. Okay. What time is it? 2 hours. Okay, perhaps we can see one or two other. And yes, okay. So audio effect, the next one is called pitch hack. And it is an effect which was first Max for Live effect. And it will work. It's not exactly a pitch shifter or like the plugin for the vocal. I can't recall its name. Not pitch shifter, but auto shift. It's a bit different. It's like it will capture a loop of a certain length. Here, for example, 1/4, and we will be able to play on the pitch of this. So you have real-time signal. It will be pitch, but it will take how many milliseconds? 0 milliseconds. Okay, 0 sample latency. So no latency. But yes, let's just experiment it. Cut on a rhythmical track and see how it behaves. So at first we hear nothing because the dry rate is full, 100% dry. Show device, copy. Okay, let's go. So it's in between pitch and changing the speed. So it's a time stretch, in fact, because you see that it changed the speed of the original drum. Okay, so let's set it to a common value of 12. We have the same rhythm twice as fast. We can reverse the slice. Okay, we can, what mean recycle? Set the amount of transpose signal sent back into the delay line. Okay, so this is also a kind of delay line, and recycle is a kind of feedback. Let's listen. Okay, let's change that speed to the maximum. Okay. And the idea, as we have a dry rate signal, is to try to mix it with the original signal. Okay. So very particular effect, and apparently variation, what it set a random variation of the interval transposition, a random value between 0 and this parameter is chosen for each segment of transposition, C rate. Okay, so this will put some random modulation of the setted pitch at the rate of that setted rate here. Okay. Do this effect have some presets? Yes, so let's go through the presets. Heavy, heavy. Okay, so we can say that this type of effects is like a brand that recall me this time of pitch manipulation is Eventide, kind of Eventide effects. So after the pitch hack, we have something even more esoteric, and this thing is called pitch loop. And apparently it takes time to open. So this thing, I will not go deep, but just to tell you, this thing is more than deep. So this is an old machine, if I remember well what I read, a kind of echo machine built in France a long time ago, in the early beginning of digital delay. And the way this machine was functioning inspired a man to try to copy it fully and make this plugin with it. Okay. And this interface is so complex that I will stay really wise and just try to discover it with you now. So apparently we have the left side and the right side. Okay. And we have an LFO. Position random, the segment, the pitch of it, the fine pitch, a vibrato, low cut, high cut, feedback, okay? And we have two of those lines. This one is switched off for now. I don't know why or how to switch it on. Oh, okay, we have just to switch this. Effective parameters change on left are also applied to right channel. Okay. So it's stereo pass, but only one set of parameters will rule the two sides, as you can see here. Okay. And if I unlink them, this set the position of the left and this set the position of the right. So I will just try to tweak it a bit, but the more we will learn is in some presets. And yes, he left some preset. It was needed because, no, this one is more than echo. Choosing 10 allow to run effect at 1/2. Okay. Okay. So let's play. First, let's set in a default setting device. Okay, so position is like the timing setting. Okay, after that position, we have a random parameter, and the set position can be randomized in real time, a little or a lot. Okay, and before using randomize, we have also a LFO. We can switch on or off with several shape. Okay, and this LFO will affect the position knob, and you see the value move here when I bring out the depth of the LFO. Okay. We have also the possibility to change the pitch of the delay line. So first, let me look for a value in ms which correspond to the speed of my music. So 130 BPM. Let's set it to 346. And I can double check it, so it will be 346. Okay, I can't have it, so it will be 342. Okay. Okay. So this is like downgrading the quality. At 20K bandwidth, imagine we set it to 342 milliseconds. When we set it to 10K bandwidth, meaning we don't have the high frequency between 10K and 20K, we can set the double value of the first one with a weaker quality, and 5K, meaning the bandwidth go from the low to 5 kilohertz, we can have the double of the signal from the 10K, but with even a lower quality. So let's try those quality. I set the pitch to 0, no LFO, no random. So, by the way, segment here will decide what will be the size of the audio segment processed by the pitch. Okay, pitch effect work like with a buffer. So you will have a buffer more or less long of some audio signal, and it will pitch this by pack. And this pack, the size of this pack is set by this knob, and they call it segment. Okay. So the more your slice or your segment will be big, the cleaner will be the pitch shifting after it. The shorter it will be, and the more artifact sounding will be the pitch. And apparently this parameter also affects the speed. So yes, very esoteric machine. And what I wanted to try also is to change this parameter. Let's set it to full weight. So as it is not a real half-time effect, really, you will choose different setting here for different quality. Most high quality will be here. So, of course, I told you all this is duplicated below if we want to work in left-right. Here must be the transition between the delay tap, and we can have a fade between them, or let me see, if activate, a longer internal fade between segment is happening. Okay. Depending on the source material, this might lead to less artifact with both. Okay. So these two switches to limit the artifact. We also have a little, and they bring us directly when we click on the question point to the manual of this heavy machine. And this is what I was telling you at the beginning. This is the original machine. This emulate, okay? So early delays that can do a lot of things, and so very early digital machine, Serie digital audio computer, pitch shifting mode. Okay, so it was at first a pitch shifting effect. Okay, and you have all the story and for what they use it and how. Okay, and all other work from that guy, which is one of the creator of Ableton, Robert Henk. Okay, so let's go through some presets. Drum glitch. Really not from this world kind of effects. Very great. So as it is something called Hassel flute, let's try it on a synth. Okay, let's go back on the drum for some new presets. Impossible percussion body. We have reverse audio. Okay, so for what I would use it, it would take too much time to enter into all of this. But yes, for some special effect I can't fathom myself. I want something really surprising. I will open that. I didn't mention that we have also some low cut and high cut section and the feedback, of course, because this is a kind of delay also. Okay, so this is where the Ableton maker go when they want to go even further than everyone. So I will understand this in 3 years, I guess. Let's go to the next one. Pitch loop. Prearranger is from the IFTA so for later, re-enveloper. This is also a Max for Live device. I don't know if it's in official Ableton, but if you have the 12, you should have it in it. So let's listen what it does because I never used it. Okay, so apparently we can select 2 different bands. Okay. We can cut the band. Okay. And we have an attack and release and CU fact. Wow. So this is a kind of compressor expander, another one. I'm reading on the left, compressor expander factor. With positive value, the envelope is compressed. The difference between the softer and the louder part is diminished. With negative value, the envelope is expanded. The difference between the softer and louder part is augmented. So we will be able to split whatever signal we have in 3 bands and decide if it expand or compress on each band. So we could say this is a kind of very simplified multiband compressor without ratio and threshold setting. It must be in the same knob here, and depending also of the input signal. So let's try it. So I guess if we had more attack, the kind of compression occur at the attack value, meaning 135 ms after the signal crosses the threshold. So quickly we can dial some sound like OTT kind of sound. And yes, its name is saying everything, re-enveloper, and we can bypass some of them by switching off those switches. Let's try it quickly on the bass and see what we can do with it. Okay, so re-enveloper, and it goes even more than re-envelope things. I think it can be interesting to, in that particular case, focus on the name of that machine and find out that you will use it when you need to reshape something. Let's see if they set some preset. Yeah, we have bass crusher. Let's see the way they bass crush in their preset. Yes, gentle bass crush. Okay, let's go back on the drum and try some other presets. Drum dryer. We talk about envelope here. This is the original drum, and then with the drum dryer. So we can learn that when we want to dry up a signal, we will use some negative value for this last parameter. Hi-hat isolation. So it also suggests that it can be used as a crossover effect. So I think it will require a little patience to get into this deeply, but as we can hear by the sound, this is really a kind of multi-band dynamic from Ableton, but simplified and more on the sound design side, and you can expand the sound, gate it, drive it when you bring up the attack because the first part of the signal will be clipped. So yes, a great coloring machine, we can say, re-enveloper, great coloring machine. After this, we have in the alphabetic list Redux. So Redux is an effect making possible to downgrade your sound. Meaning that in the past, audio conversion, in the earlier audio conversion, as I showed earlier in the pitch loop 89, the audio conversion at this time was like 22k hertz and 12 bits or 8 bits or whatever. Like Nintendo sound, it's like 4 or 8 bits, okay? So this little Redux machine will give us the possibility to reduce the rate, like the frequency rate of our audio signal, meaning that if I set 2250 like this, it would say that the sound has been recorded in an old digital device, okay? And I can go down to 20 hertz, okay? Meaning at the full we have 40,000 images on a second to replicate the sound, and at the beginning we have only 20 images per second to record the sound digitally, okay? And so this is a rate, and like your sound card, 44.1 kilohertz. And then we have the bits depth. It starts at 16 and can go down to 1 bit, okay? The bit value in a sample, in a digital audio sample, define the number of value in which will be encoded the sound digitally. Okay, so to talk in to make you a translation quickly, when you record in 16-bit, according to the number of value in 16-bit, the lower signal you can replicate as a quite good quality would be something like minus 70 dB. If you are in 24 bits, the lower signal possible that will be translated correctly would be like minus 70 or minus 90, okay, even minus 124 brief. This will decide the dynamic, okay? As most of the machine were sampling in 16-bit, as the recording of a CD, it seems that this is the minimum acceptable to have a good compromise between file size and audio quality. Okay, after it, we have the jitter into the rate, meaning it will add some error in the rate calculation. It can be filtered pre or post. We'll see later. The shape, this varies the shape of the quantizer characteristic curve. Higher value produce a finer resolution for smaller amplitude. Okay, so this is a kind of the shape of our work, those 16 bits. We have a DC shift. This apply an amplitude offset before the quantization process and can significantly change the sound. Okay, now for what it is used, some people have some samples, but they want it to sound like old machine. They would use Redux, play their sample, and try to mess with all of that. Okay, so the more you go counterclockwise with the rate, and the more you go in the past for audio quality in digital domain. So you hear this little ringing frequency. Okay. In the past, this was the kind of conversion we would avoid because our ears were not ready for this kind of sound being into the sound design. Okay, so this was the kind of frequency I would remove from the bass in the past because I thought it was killing the bass. But since all those time, now it has become also a tool of sound design, and also they updated the redux, meaning whatever we destroy the sound in whatever form, we can have a dry wet. Okay, I'm trying now on the bass. So yes, it is used also as a distortion unit, even if it plays with the rate and the beat of the audio sample. Some error, and I can filter it. So as I was saying, and they set the right filter in it. Okay, because this is what we were doing to remove some of the conversion artifact. Here I went too far, sorry, but so here what is happening, all this quantized noise or signal is mixed with the original signal, and then for the moment is not mixed because we are full wet, but this filter remove all the high frequency. And you are left with a like more square signal and deep. Okay, let's go back on the drum to finish on that redux. Apparently, this filter is a two-way filter. With negative value, we go into the high cut, and in positive value, we go into the low cut. Okay, so something to bring character to some signal. Let's go through a few of the presets and we'll see. With that sound, we are even before Mario Bros. And all those Nintendo things. Characteristic ringing of low quality samples. Perhaps you already heard a kind of old MP3 from the internet cave, you know, and you hear the bad quality like this with that type of sound. Ringing. So So this one is called synth byte. Let's see if it hides some byte on my synth. Effectively. Vintage sampler. Okay, so the last preset illustrate what I was explaining. Here they set it as a 12-bit sampler like the SP 12000, old machine from that epoch, EMU samplers. The DMX was kind of 12-bit, not a sampler, but 12-bit sound. And this type of crunch that it adds on samples was an imperfection of the calculation from that epoch, but it has been so much used that it become a print. Okay, and now you know that if you want some not lo-fi but lower-fi quality of your sound, you will use this. Let's try on the drum. Okay, and if you want to follow into that direction, we can imagine that this is, let's say, the output of the sample, meaning we imagine that it don't exist, this plugin don't exist. It just gives the color, and after this we can set a lot of other effects simply, and then we are starting processing a downgraded signal. Okay, so not that one. Let's set the pedal after it. And it will give you an idea of what it would have been to process your sound with some effect and your sound sounding from a vintage sampler. So yes, this Redux is very useful in many ways, even in its simplest. What time is it? We are near to 3 hours, so I will take just one last. Yes, because we are coming close to some kind of things that will take half an hour to talk about. The raw too. So let's stay here. Resonator. Still on drum. So resonator is something we can bring some resonant peak in a signal. And what we can do with it, just bring them up and we get a filter. It's like, let's say we will retune a sound with that. So I open the EQ8 for a quick explanation of what I'm saying. Let's take just 3 or 4 dot frequency. We will set first one on 110. This is a A. Set the second one or 220. This is still a A. The third one, second one, third one. Let me check. So that one will set to 440. So we have a A at a frequency, another A, and we will add a next A at the next octave. Okay. I will just narrow them Q and bring the gain. Okay, you don't want to narrow the Q of everyone. Let's take one by one. Okay, something like that, and I put it full screen for you to understand. Okay, here I have an EQ and I bring up only the frequency called A, meaning the note A. So this is the note A in that frequency. I double this frequency. This is the note A above, the note A above, the note A above. Okay, assuming that any song contains all the frequency. When a singer will sing A note, these are the frequencies that will be dominant is in his song, okay? Meaning, if let's say I'm in A sharp and the singer sung in A, make a little mistake. In the past I could use an EQ, set 4 or 5 peak to A sharp. So let's move that frequency until A sharp. This is already too much. Okay, we are in B, little less. Still in B, little less, no, a bit more. Okay, I can grasp it, but let's say this frequency is A sharp, and it's A sharp. You can see it at the bottom left. Okay, so to retune or a kick or an instrument or a note of a singer, we would take the note of the actual note that should be sung and bring up all those frequencies, creating some resonant point which will dominate the whole signal. As I say, no matter if you sing a B, a E, or a C, or a A, your voice will cover all the frequencies, okay? With dominant note where you sing in tone. But this with some exaggerated resonant peak, we can like detune or retune the signal only with the frequency, as one frequency is equal to one note. Okay, so this resonator is this type of instrument. And here the peak, instead of setting the peak in terms of frequency, they will give us some musical value, okay? Here we have the decay of those resonating peaks. We can have different level for each resonant dot, and as you see, it is set as naming some notes. First, second, so the fundamental, the second, the third, the fourth, and the fifth. Okay. So I find it great on drum, but it's for everything. This one is this detune the note parameter in sense. So this is a detuner compared to the different notes. As you see, the first one is a note. So the fundamental. Here we are in A. So let's set it to A. As you see, I compose in A minor. And then we could set several harmonics of that A. So the second will be a B. I know there's 2 semitones after the A for a B, so this will be a B. The third degree would be a C, so 3 semitones. Okay. And then a D, we are at 5. And the E, which will be at 7. So here it's a nonsense because I make resonate all the frequencies, all the notes of the scale. But if I switch off the second and the first, I'm here with A minor chord. Okay, so to explain quickly again, I'm on A, we are just on the white note on the keyboard, okay? From A to B, we have 2 notes, and from B to C, we have 3 notes, etc. Okay? We know to make a chord is 1, 3rd, and 5th. So if I cut the 2nd and the 4th, we hear our drum singing and ringing like a chord. Because of those resonating points. And all the other resonating points will be above or below the setting note, because we can go across several octaves, for example A4. Okay, and here I have the constant, this all the decay time constant regardless to the actual pitch. Okay, if this one is not engaged, it will change the length of the sound depending on its pitch, aka the more the pitch will be high, the more the sound will be shortened. Meaning that +7 note will be shorter than that first note. And constant make them equal. So what is interesting is when you choose your resonating point, you just have to play with the fundamental and it's okay. Above we have the mute and mode A and B. I don't know what is for. Mode A provide a more realistic sounding resonator. Mode B offer an effect that is especially interesting when resonators note is set to lower pitches. So resonator first note is set to low pitch. So let's try. Okay, so an effect that can be interesting and spread the rate signal across the stereo spectrum. Okay, so the more we have spread to 100%, the more it will spread each of the resonator in the stereo spectrum, aka at 0 it's mono. Okay, last thing, it is grayed out here, perhaps because I'm not on a MIDI track, but apparently we can use also the scale awareness system from Ableton to tune that resonator. Okay, so let's drop it, for example, on a lead. Yes, so to be able to use this scale awareness system from Ableton, the resonator must be dropped on a track which contains some MIDI information. Okay. And then we can click on. Let me just try something to verify. Resonator. Yes, that's it. This don't work on audio tracks. Okay, and from there, on the MIDI track, let's choose A, because we are in A. No, not this. Something like that. Let's set it now to the scale awareness, and as you can see, all the parameters now is in scale degree, meaning the 0 correspond to the key you are working on. So here it's the A. one octave above, one octave below. And let's set 2 octave, it means 7. 7 plus 8, okay. Okay, so resonator, and now we will, to end the tutorial of today, put the resonator on the drum and try some of its presets. So very, very powerful when we get how it works. Let's try it on the leads. Definitely, it's really on the drums that I love this effect. It works as a vocoder kind of sound. Okay, so very great resonator. So on the next EP, should be the number 5. We will start with the classic reverb. That one everyone know. And go onto the great roar, which is a distortion. Very great multiband distortion. With the possibility of a full screen and modulation matrix, meaning we can send some LFO, some envelope followers, a lot of things, envelope followers, some noise oscillator to the parameters, any parameters of that very, very great distortion called roar. Okay, we will see also the classic saturator, the shaper, which is another Max for Live, which become a stock plugin from Ableton, a kind of LFO tool or envelope tool, but here we can draw which shape we want to modulate any of 8 parameters. Okay, so we'll see this in deep in the next episode. We will see also the shifter, very great one, pitch shifting effect, ring modulator effect, spectral blur, all the spectral section, very brand new. Not that brand new, but compared to the classic, they are brand new. Okay, spectral resonator, spectral time, very experimental side. The tuner, the utility, variation is a IFTA. So we will see it in the IFTA episode. Vector delay, vector map, vinyl distortion, and vocoder. So I guess we will cover the rest of this list in the last episode of this series, which was discovering and experimenting with Ableton Effects in the alphabetic order. Okay, I will save this Patreon track on a blank project and set it available on my Patreon. Okay. From level 2, I guess. The other one was from level 1 for everyone to get the first EP. And this one will be from level 2. Okay. What can I say else? Yes. And later, on next episode, will be all about the media effects, which will be very, very interesting also. And later again, we will jump on the instrument list of Ableton. Okay, so thank you for following. Don't hesitate to go on Patreon. There's also a lot of free content, so you can just subscribe for free, have access to the information for the free subscriber, and a few presents I made along the years for the free subscriber. I will surely add another one very soon. So don't hesitate to, even for free, to be there and to grasp the next reward for everyone. Okay. Also in project, a special Ableton project file, which will be available for the higher supporter. Because it's been a long time I didn't made something exclusive to level 3 and 4. So as I get a lot of support from those level, we will have soon Ableton project complete. I don't know, but with some effects, some instruments, some composition available in the higher level of rewards. And I will keep you in touch to tell you all this. That way, even if you are a free subscriber, you can subscribe on level 3 or 4 just for 1 month and capture this next mega Ableton project. Okay, so thank you also for sharing this information that Shieldrum Records tutorial exists. Don't hesitate to share. Don't hesitate also to link me directly in the Patreon chat or message. Link me for whatever you want. And yes, I think that's all. So thank you. It's 3 hours, a bit fewer than always. I'm making like 3 hours and a half. But yeah, we are in a ballpark. So don't hesitate to comment if you want something to understand more particularly. If something was not clear enough and you want I to make another video more focused on that one thing, okay. So to finish, this reward of a bunch of effects of tonight will be available in the night after my session here. So thank you all for the support, and yes, see you in the next Dub Salute.